Deep Shot Podcast, Season 5, Episode 1.
I'm going to go with Kadarius Toney. You know I'm going to pick Kadarius Toney as my Florida guy. Number one, he was the most electric guy. Still doesn't have ACLs in either leg. I don't know how he worked on the football field, but, man, it was excellent.
I'm going to go Alshon Jeffrey, University of South Carolina, one of the best receivers to ever come out of Carolina. Absolutely.
Yeah, those were two homer picks. I'll go Sony Michel. How about that? Number one at Georgia, South Carolina, and Florida. And you are listening to that right. Deep Shot Podcast is back for Season 5, and you may hear a new voice. That is right. In Season 5, we switched some things up. Jonathan Kessinger, you may have seen him. You may have seen him do the stream back in the day where we chugged Coors Lights to Kennesaw State and Western Kentucky, or whoever it was. You've seen him on the social page. He is now part of the Deep Shot Podcast. Welcome.
Lovely to be here. Been a supporter and been involved for a little bit of stuff here and there. Glad to officially be part of the podcast now.
Yeah, it's good to have you. We are very excited to start Season 5. We are glad everyone is here and listening. It's been a long off season ever since we last talked. We had less than 3,000 followers, right? We've gained almost to 8,000 now as we get ready to start our 5th season of Deep Shot Podcast. With Jonathan starting the podcast, we must say goodbye to Jake Johnston. That was his own calling to do. He just decided he's going to step aside and do some things. We support his decision. You'll probably hear from him here and there, but for now, it's going to be Jonathan stepping in, taking the reins, and we could not be more excited to have him here. And we've got a packed episode for you guys tonight. For Episode 1 of Season 5, we've got the offseason headlines. This is a college football and NFL show, so we're going to talk college football and NFL. Before we've done, a full college football episode, a full NFL episode, we're going to have a little bit of everything. We're going to talk some SEC season preview. We're going to talk about the NFC South season preview. We've got some fun trivia to get into. So without further ado, let's go ahead and start talking about some of the stuff that happened in this packed offseason that we had in college football and in the NFL. The first thing we have got to talk about when it comes to the offseason headlines that took the football world by storm all offseason had to be the Brendan Sorsby drama that happened just a couple months ago. If you were living under a rock, Brendan Sorsby was caught gambling while he was at Indiana a couple years ago. He was quarterback at Cincinnati last year. He was going to be now the quarterback of Texas Tech this upcoming season. And then some things happened. He got caught gambling not once, not twice, maybe thousands of times on things other than just Indiana football. Was betting on things such as Indiana to win. He was doing this on DraftKings or on FanDuel or whatever app he was doing it on. And this became a huge story. NCAA rules him ineligible, right? As they should. Then he does what everybody else does and decides, I'm going to go to court. I'm going to fight this. Texas Tech backs him. And all of a sudden, the one thing that we thought would never happen, somebody who gambled on their own team, that became okay to do. And within a week of that happening, the entire college football world flipped upside down. There was the Big 12 talked about getting rid of Texas Tech for a second. There was teams such as Georgia, Nebraska, other teams that were saying we're not going to play Texas Tech anymore. Texas Tech made a 22-minute long video at one point, kind of just spouting about how they stood up for him. And then they said, you know what, actually, we think it'd be best if you left because I think this has gotten pretty out of hand. And then he said, okay, I'll go do the NFL supplemental draft. And then the NFL said, nope. We're not doing that. We're not playing with you. So anyway, after this whole thing had happened, Brendan Sorsby's not playing for Texas Tech. He's not going to the NFL this year. I mean, Caleb, what was just your whole basis of the whole situation?
I couldn't believe he was even trying to get away with it. I mean, you're talking about the cardinal sin in all of sports. It's going to be betting on your own team and maybe messing around with bookies and, who knows? I mean, you open up Pandora's box, especially when you're talking about the quarterback, okay? And I know he wasn't on the field for any of these things, but, he may know that this guy's got a tweaked hamstring and it's not on the injury report. You know what I mean? So he's playing baseball, tipping pitches Astro styles with the garbage can when it came to some of these bets, and that's just not okay. And then to make it worse, I think this is the reason why he's not where he is, which he wants to be in the NFL currently, and he probably wanted to be at Texas Tech before that because they were going to pay him $5.5 million or whatever the crazy number it was. The guy never just owned up to it, in my opinion. He was always yeah, well, I did this. It was stupid, but it's all right. I mean, I wasn't playing or nothing. You know what I mean? No, it's serious. This is gambling on sports. I mean, Shohei Ohtani is the biggest baseball player that we've had in the last, 20 years. And he was almost completely derailed from his career because of some semblance of gambling issues going on in his life. And, maybe as an interpreter, people still are a little questionable about that whole situation. But I really didn't have too much of an opinion about Brendan Sorsby before all this situation. I mean, I think if we go back to last year, my analysis, I told you guys, I didn't think he was worthy of being that highly touted of a transfer quarterback. I mean, he's all right, turns the ball over a bunch, he runs the ball well, but I was just never wowed by his game. I watched a good bit of Cincinnati football last year too. And in the process of that, Texas Tech never caught wind of his troubles, but yeah, they still were like, okay, we're going to support you. And then for Texas Tech and Cody Campbell to try and play hardball and be like, all right, well, let's go to court. We got some good lawyers. I like the judges around here. Cody Campbell's stuff in the pockets of Ken Paxton, who's the AG of Texas, and allowing all this to go on. And then that dude comes out and is like, we're going to file suit against the Big 12 if they don't, or whoever, NCAA, if they don't let him play. And then you start roping in other senators from other states that are in the same conference, like Kansas's senators, Missouri. You can go on down the list. And these guys are just like, whoa, wait a second. We're not just going to sit around here and let you guys basically ruin football. Because I, in my opinion, if he would have got away with it, I don't know how you view college football in the same semblance. I mean, it's not the same. You can just do whatever you want to and then go cry to a judge and get it fixed. And that is unacceptable. I think that the NFL did a great job of handling it because, lest we forget, he could have just gotten away with all of this by just saying, I'll just go to supplemental draft. Somebody cough up a second round pick and he gets that tender for his contract and he's on NFL roster. Instead, they eviscerated him in the paper and basically said, you had zero accountability in this entire process. You did something that is against NFL bylaws as well. You don't want to serve your punishment down there. You're not fit to be in this league. It is a privilege to wear the NFL shield and to put on these helmets. And the same is true for Texas Tech. And Texas Tech did a really poor job of representing that because this whole thing tarnished their brand. I mean, that 22-minute video, who watched it? Did anybody? Did everybody just skip right over that video? There's no way that you could think that is the right thing to do in that situation. That's going to garner any support in the public eye.
Yeah, I agree. I think, at the end of the day, what happened was supposed to happen. He's not going to be playing in college football this year. He's not going to be playing in the NFL. It's unfortunate for the young man, but we all have to kind of take one on the chin and learn our lessons. I think the biggest thing for me that jumped out was exactly what Caleb was saying, kind of the handling of it by Texas Tech. I mean, just making excuses for the guy, trying to blame mental health and this, that, and the other. Pretty ridiculous, especially from a program that's on the rise. And, you think, they're supposed to be kind of, doing the stuff the good way, doing the stuff the right way, rather than, kind of playing behind the rules, kind of crossing the line a little bit. So I also think Cincinnati, I guess we don't really know what's going to happen to them out of all this, if anything, but how much did they know when they took him on the last year? But overall, again, I think it's kind of, we're moving past it. The games are about to start on the grass. He's not going to be on there, and it's unfortunate, but everybody moves on.
It was pretty universally disagreed with in all of college football. Like, I don't think 5%. I mean, I don't know, unless you were a Texas Tech fan and you were just like, we got to have this guy. But like you said, Caleb, I was also, I think I remember maybe back, go back to January, February, we're still on here talking and the portal rankings are coming out. And, I'm sitting here questioning how Brendan Sorsby became a number one ranked college, portal player. That one made no sense to me at all. It's unfortunate that he got in that situation and the whole process of how we got to a point where he was about to be able to play is really what kind of just makes it all kind of incredible to me. Like the fact that there was a point where for a week he was going to play. Let me ask you guys this. What do you think, what happens if Brendan Sorsby is suiting up this fall for Texas Tech Raiders?
What's not legal at that point? Why not go get an NFL guy that got cut last year and just bring him on the roster? If you can gamble, I mean, what is truly illegal? Because if you were to sit here and tell me okay, name the one thing that you think you couldn't do in sports, my answer is going to be gambling on your own team. That is the tried and true. You're not going to get away with this. It doesn't matter who you are. It's like capital murder. You can't do it. And so just to even think that, okay, you can get away with the biggest sin in the world and still make it to heaven in his situation. You know what I mean? That's exactly what he's going for. He wanted all the cake and he wanted to eat some too. I I'm sorry, dude. If I had an addiction to something, just because I can throw a football well does not mean I get away with it. I still have to be accountable for what I did. If I go and run somebody over in the street, guess what I'm going to do? I'm going to go to jail. It's just the way it is. I think Texas Tech's brand took way more of a hit than Sorsby's did in the process of all this. So, like, by the draft process next year, I'm sure they'll PR this thing out, and he'll be just fine. He'll probably be, one of the top 4 or 5 quarterbacks taken. It's unfortunate. He probably should have, in hindsight, came out this year because the draft class next year is insane. So don't know where he's going to fall in that department, but mismanagement on his end, man, just like own it, be an adult. And if you're the quarterback and you can't sit there as a leader of a team and be like, guys, this is my fault. We shouldn't even been in this situation. I need to rectify it. You don't rectify it by going to get a judge. You rectify it by serving your suspension just like everybody else, not jeopardizing every other player on that roster and that organization, because Texas Tech is not just Brendan Sorsby and the guys that are there now. It's Patrick Mahomes. It's Mike Leach's legacy. Like, all that stuff is warped into that name, brand, and sake. And I mean, there's going to be a whole generation of fans that probably remember this as like, oh, they tried to really get away with something.
Yeah, it puts them in a tough spot now too, as a program, as a team for this year. Will Hammond, I think he's going to be ready by the first or second game, but he's still kind of hurt. So, it not only did he kind of play himself, he played his team and made himself not available for them, which, just going back to your point, Caleb, as the quarterback, you got to be accountable. You got to be that leader. And totally on agreement on how highly touted he was. I thought he was a good runner. Thought he made some special plays here and there, but overall, I'm not sure he was the number one, quarterback, number 2 quarterback in the portal. Definitely overpaid for him, in my opinion. But yeah, we'll see what Texas Tech does from here on out. But I do think there is kind of a stain on how they look at the moment. It's kind of like when Art Briles and was doing all that bad stuff at Baylor, and there's been multiple instances in the past in college football where brands have been able to kind of come back from that. There's still a little bit of stink to them as well, but this is something that I think is gonna be stinking for a long time. That's just not, with all the gambling deals and casinos, and it's just, that's something you can't cross the line over.
Absolutely. And go back to, like, if you guys remember a couple years ago, like Iowa had some players and Iowa State had some football players. Those guys gambled on their team. I think they just bet like an over. They got suspended for the year. Their careers were cooked. And one of them, if I'm not mistaken, was a tight end going in the year, had like a second round draft pick, like, grade on him. Those guys didn't see the field. So if Brendan Sorsby was ruled eligible, who's paying them their back pay for wrongful misuse or judgment of their case? I mean, that's just completely unfair. The precedent's there time and time again. There's no way you can sit here and say that this is a different case and scenario just because he's getting paid $5.5 million. Too bad.
If anything, and Brendan Sorsby, we don't have to watch him at all this season. So that could be a win for the guys who didn't think he was that good at all anyway. So let's move it on. Let's go ahead and talk about the next thing that's kind of been taking the offseason by storm, and it is the college football playoff expansion. Again, another thing that I think is pretty universally hated in the world of college football fans. Let me say that. Especially, I think especially on this podcast, it's pretty universally not liked. Look, the Big Ten, it seems like all offseason it's been pushing for 24. It seems like the SEC now is saying, well, we want 16, and if we don't get what we want, we're just going to go do our own thing. We're going to be talking Super League. Caleb, I mean, when we talk about playoff expansion, I'm pretty sure you're on the side of let's not do that, right? Where do you see this ending up? I've talked about it on CFB Only, my show I've been doing all offseason, that I think at some point we're going to end up at 24. What's more likely? We go to 24, or, the SEC and Big Ten break off and we've got a Super League?
I think the Super League is closer. I just don't see that the SEC is going to capitulate to what the Big Ten wants. I mean, here's the thing. It is dollars and cents for everybody. That's what's making this decision. It's not what the fans want. It's not what the players want. None of that stuff. I mean, the players aren't going to say a damn thing because you're getting paid way more money than they ever have, even when it was going under the table. And we all know it was going under the table for years and years leading up to this. Here's the thing. SEC teams do not need stakes to get fans to the stadium or people to watch their games. Mississippi State and Texas is going to have 2.5 million people watch it in the fall because it's on TV and we care about it in the South. It doesn't need to be that Mississippi State's the number 24 team and they've got to win this thing to get in. We don't need any of that, okay? The Big Ten, on the other hand, like, what chance does Purdue have to get in a playoff if there's not a 24-team playoff? I can go ahead and give you, like, case-by-case examples in the SEC. Like, If Mississippi State goes 9-3 or 10-2 in that league, they're going to the playoffs. If Purdue doesn't have a shot to do that, is my point. Like that, go back last year, Mississippi State was probably one of the worst teams in the SEC, right? They played Texas close. They played Florida close. I mean, you go on and down the list of the teams that they scared last year. You're not getting that from Rutgers. You're not getting that from, I'm sorry, Minnesota and PJ Fleck. Cool video the other day, banging the drums. You're going to go 7-5. Like, they're just, it's not what it needs to be on that end. I'd understand if I was the Big Ten, I'd want 24 too, because there's no other way that they're not going to, I mean, it's going to be, there's 5 teams in that conference that can make a 12-team playoff in my mind on a year-to-year basis. That's about it. SEC, however, like it could be LSU, it could be Florida, it could be Georgia, it could be Tennessee, it could be Auburn, it could be Bama. And what the worst thing that you could do if you were Greg Sankey is to make your regular season less, because the SEC regular season is the best regular season in all of sports, all of them, worldwide. Doesn't matter. Every Saturday matters. You never know what's going to happen. There's people ready to show up and go. I mean, you're talking about people in the South, just for folks that don't know. Like, I remember as a kid, there were some families that would buy a ticket to a Georgia game or, Alabama game or Auburn game, take their whole family. That was like their fall vacation. Like, they spent what they could. They took out money and borrowed it in order to make sure that they were able to go see their team. That's how important it is down here. In the North, I understand that the money's there, but just the following of the teams. I mean, if Indiana went 3-9 last year, they wouldn't have a full packed stadium. It just is the truth. And Florida, meanwhile, has been at the near gutter level of the SEC, and they've had sellouts for like 6 straight years since COVID. You're not finding that elsewhere. So all of it is just to get more money. And these coaches, this really bothers me. The coaches are being dishonest. I'm always on the coach's side. But to sit here and say, oh, yeah, we want 24. You know why they want 24? Because when you get in the playoff, it's harder to get fired. You get more extensions. I mean, of course, they're going to want more slots to get in the dance because, I mean, if you made it easier to get $1 million, you'd have more millionaires. Now, what's it worth to be a millionaire? It's not the same. You got to be honest about that. And so when these coaches are like, oh, yeah, well, we've been in the playoffs 2 years in a row. Yeah, you were the 21 ranked team in the country. You went 8-4 and had to beat Duke on your last week of the season in order to get in. Like, who's rewarding that? And I don't think we should. College football's essence has been about go undefeated or lose one game and you better not lose again. That is the essence of college football. It's hard to go undefeated, but 1 or 2 teams can and will every year. I mean, so what? I mean, we've already seen the 10 seed or 9 seed Ohio State make a run all the way to the championship, win the whole damn thing. Miami almost did the same thing to Indiana last year. Like that whole great story about Signetti, this and that. It was this close to not happening because Miami was able to squeak in at the very end, get hot, beat a ton of teams that were really good at the end of the year, and including Ohio State, and roll into the title game at their strength. So that like the argument for it doesn't resonate with me. I don't need millions and millions of TV dollars to make me happy. I want to watch, Mississippi State play Ole Miss in the Egg Bowl. I don't give a shit if they're 7-5 or 10-2, both of them. I'm going to watch it because it's football.
Yeah, I pretty much agree with you there. I think there's a couple big issues with it, and one of them definitely stems from the SEC being the only conference or player that really isn't really interested in expanding, mainly because they're good enough to get their teams in and 4 or 5 teams in every single year. The Big Ten, however, to Caleb's point, we're not seeing the Minnesotas, we're not seeing Illinois get in. We're trying to fish for that bottom tier team or those bottom tier teams that we're trying to force in there for some reason. It doesn't really make sense to me. I don't think it's going to be a super entertaining product watching Illinois play. Take for instance like Texas or somebody like that. I think that's not really what we're looking for. And even for an Illinois versus 11-1 Texas, they didn't really earn it to get there. I don't think they should be there. The other issues I think come from just the formatting itself. Like we don't really need to have automatic qualifiers. We don't need to have certain number of teams from each conference go just based on who you are. I think it should be based on merit and the rankings, just 1 through 12. And that's if you get in, you get in. If you don't, then you had a good season, good run, better luck next year. Also, the fact that Notre Dame gets a special, path, special treatment in this whole thing is just absolutely ludicrous. I am on top of the moon from what happened last year. I mean, yeah, sure, they might have gotten screwed because of the way the playoff committee kind of portrayed it or brought it up. But I mean, that was exactly what was supposed to happen. I mean, You play a 2-game schedule. You lost 2 of those games. What do you expect? And that's the other thing as well, now that I'm on this point, is what happens if we go to a 2014 playoff? How many good out of conference games do you think you're going to get? I don't think you're going to get that many. A lot of people are saying, oh, you're going to get better games because you can lose more and still get in.
No.
That's some bullshit. Everybody still wants wins. That's how you get judged, off of wins and losses. Some places like Ohio State, you better go 11-1, 12-0. Places like Carolina, let's get to a bowl game, 7 games. It's different at every place, but wins are wins, and you're gonna see more of Ohio State or Ohio State and Grambling rather than Ohio State and Texas. I think in that scenario. So I think for the fan, it's a total L for business and making profit. I'm sure it's a good idea, but not interested from a fan perspective.
Go look at the Tulane and Ole Miss game last year. Like, what kind of ratings did you guys tune in? I think there's NFL games going on at the same time, and I was just peeking over there because it's my next head coach. But outside of that, like, you knew it was going to happen. James Madison, Oregon, same thing. You're going to get more of those when you're asking for 24 teams. Like, we're just going to hit the snooze button, because here's the deal: you can say whatever you want to. It don't matter if you put 4 teams in, 16, 10 teams in, 12, 24, put 48 in. Better do 64 like the March Madness. Your results are not going to vary that much. Ohio State's still going to steamroll all these teams, probably going to get to, the final 8. You're going to have 1 or 2 SEC schools do the same thing. Probably another Big Ten school. Like, the variance is not there, especially with the money. Like, you're not going to get Boise States with Kellen Moore's just standing around that are able to just go and beat, whoever. It's just not going to happen anymore.
Especially with the way the NIL and portal and things like that are set up now, that the depth on each team is just not what it once was.
Mm.
So you're asking a team like maybe Georgia Tech or maybe like a Mississippi State who catches fire one year, who's like 8-4, and they've been playing beat up schedules. They've been playing the big boys in their conference, and now they're just limping into the playoffs where they're going to have to play another big boy. And guess what's going to happen? It's flattering. I mean, it's going to be G5 all over again. You know what I mean? So I'm all for more entertaining games, not less.
It'll be interesting to see where we go. It just seems like it's all up in the air. It seems like Congress has to say something before we've got it all settled up. I mean, there's Senate bills. It's interesting stuff we've been seeing all offseason. To move over to the NFL real quick, one of the headlines coming out is one of my favorite guys, quarterbacks ever played a game, Aaron Rodgers. He announced that this will be his final season in the NFL. I wanted to read off some stats real quick about Aaron Rodgers and his last season. Super Bowl winner, Super Bowl 45, Super Bowl MVP, 4-time NFL MVP, 4-time first-team All-Pro. And listen to this stat, fellas. Aaron Rodgers has the most career Hail Marys in NFL history. Can you guess how many he has?
Yeah. I'm going to go 7.
4. 4 career Hail Marys, most in regular season history. Caleb, what are you expecting out of his last season? You got anything nice to say about Aaron Rodgers, the base king?
Yeah, I mean, I think he's going to do an excellent job this year being back with his old head coach, Mike McCarthy. I really looking forward to seeing him do this one last dance situation. I remember last year us in this podcast being over the moon that him and Joe Flacco were going to go at it in a regular season game, like the grandpa game of the century. It ended up being one of the best games of the year last year. Like, the guy still got it. Don't necessarily just believe that he's just going to walk away. I think this guy likes attention just a hair. And so there might be a little bit of a dance this offseason. Like, well, he'll go on Pat McAfee like their last show before football season. So it was like, we'll see. And then he's just going to exit stage left and just let everybody on SportsCenter and, pardon my take, just swoon over it for the next 3 months where he's finally like, yeah, all right, guys, how's this kid? And I'm out. But
yeah, realistically, I'm not sure they're going to go to the Super Bowl or anything really close to that, but I think it'll be fun to see Aaron Rodgers back at it for the last and final time. It's a little sad. I do miss the discount double check days. He hasn't really pulled out that one in a while, but man, that's a core memory for me, at least watching the Green Bay Packers as a kid growing up in South Carolina. Like Caleb said, he's still got a little bit of that fire in him, and hopefully the Steelers, that reunion with McCarthy will give a little extra more firepower to him and his arm this year. But I mean, it's a kind of a toss up in the AFC North. I mean, the Ravens and the Bengals, you don't really kind of know. I mean, Joe Burrow's probably going to get hurt in the 3rd week again. Knock on wood. Don't want to see it happen, but Let's just call a spade a spade. And then, like I said, the Ravens, Lamar's, kind of getting to the point where, who knows what they're going to do with him after this season. It's a toss up. And then you have the Browns. So, I mean, yeah, it's a winnable division. I would love to see him go out there and get it done, just for old time's sake.
I mean, they were able to get it done last year.
They did win the division last year. We'll see what happens
between him and Mike McCartney. Mike McCartney. I keep wanting to call him does he play for the Beatles or something? No. Mike McCarthy, football coach. The offense is going to be better. Okay. I was listening to, I hadn't watched Pat McAfee yet today, but last week they were talking about how they went to a practice earlier this year and there was way more juice out there than what Mike T was bringing last year. And so just along with that and the older leadership, and they still got good players all over the place. I mean, they were good enough to win a division last year. So excited to see the guy that has the best touchdown to interception ratio go at it one more time.
Last thing we're going to talk about before we get into some of the previews for the season, I just needed to bring this up. This was a pretty big headline in the offseason. The NFL, there was a report that came out that NFL players had eaten 80,000 Uncrustables per season. And then all of a sudden, we had this huge report that this company that I'm being hand up, I had never heard of in my life, Jams. Had you guys ever heard of Jams before I move on, before this deal?
I actually have heard of Jams.
Have you had?
I've never had one, but I've heard of them because for those that don't know, my day job is I work as social media marketing as a sales and marketing guy, and they actually came to us and they wanted to spend a solid amount of money using NFL pages on Instagram. So I actually had heard of them before that, but still surprising that they had that kind of money to kind of be buddies with the NFL.
Well, yeah. Well, they also got investments from Pat McAfee, J.J. Watt, Micah Parsons, Caleb Williams, and C.J. Stroud, just to name a few. And they became the official PB&J sponsor of the NFL, which I just thought, poor Uncrustables. I mean, they probably don't need any more help, but something just came out of nowhere, really. But I went and looked up the facts and to why we may have went under for Jams over Uncrustables. I think the proof is in the nutritional facts here. Jams has 10 grams of protein to Uncrustables 6, has half the added sugars and no high fructose corn syrup and no seed oils. So I think that may have been the healthy alternative. The Jams box says, I think it's like a parent's choice or a mother's choice or some sort. So they're going to be everywhere in the locker rooms. 80,000 Jams could go down this season, but I will forever be riding with Uncrustables. I'll probably never touch a jam in my life. Caleb, what about you?
So I have heard of Jams or Joms is what Pat calls it. I think I heard about it when J.J. Watt said something about it last year. And even then, like Pat McAfee was like, whoa, where's Uncrustables around here now, guy? Like, what are you trying to do here and seat the king? And I guess they did. Uncrustables is going to be quite fine. And there's a lot of huge fans of those out in the world still. They got the peanut butter and honey Uncrustables now, which are spectacular. But I do need to get a taste of the Jams because I'm a big no seed oils guy. I've been kind of that guy for a while now. The no high sugars, processed food, this, that, and the other. That's why I'm able to maintain this figure. So I definitely got to get my hands on some of those healthy Crustables.
We talked enough about the offseason headlines. Let's go ahead and get into our season previews. Take it back to college football. We're going to start in the SEC. We are SEC fans, Georgia, South Carolina, and Florida. All right. And we're going to talk about a couple things in the SEC. You're going to get who we think is going to win the conference, who we think might be some of the sleeper teams, player that we might think is a bust. But before that, I wanted to play a game with Caleb and my new co-host, Jonathan, and I'm going to be asking you guys to describe every SEC head coach in one word. All 16, you both sent me your answers earlier today. This should be a very fun segment. You guys don't know each other's answers, so it'll be fun to see what happens. So we're going to start with Caleb each time, and we're going to go through and give me one word to describe each SEC head coach. So without further ado, Caleb, go ahead. We're going to start with Kirby Smart.
The only word I could think of for him is the standard. He is the standard for college football. If you look at anybody that's trying to get to the mountaintop, if you're looking at the Mount Everest, he's up there. I mean, you're talking about the guy that's got the most, the active head coach, the most titles. I think he's the guy that speaks for everyone, so to speak, like kind of like Saban did towards the end of his days. And proof's in the pudding. I mean, since what, 2021, they haven't finished outside like the top 12 in the country. They've been in the playoff nearly every year. They got hosed out of one year, and that's the year that they beat Florida State 63-3 in the Orange Bowl in response. So his teams are always prepared to play. They rarely do not show up or get embarrassed. And even if they do lose a game, they usually find a way to beat that same team later on in the season when it counts the most. So I would say for Kirby's the standard of the SEC and all of football, probably.
Jonathan, what word do you have for Kirby Smart?
Yep, my word is chief. If you go down to the Amazon and you go through the jungle and you end up finding the people that live amongst the trees out there, who do you talk to? You talk to the chief, right? That's who you got to go to. That's who all the teams in college football, but more so the SEC, obviously, have to go through to get to the top. And so I think for that reason is the best word to describe him is chief.
Pretty solid, easy starts for you guys, okay? But Caleb, as we move to the next head coach, that is going to be Steve Sarkisian.
Word for Sark is loaded, and I'm not talking about his history at USC whenever he used to get, a little buzz the tower for the games, okay? I'm talking about his roster, the money he's got, the staff he's got. I mean, he went out and got Will Muschamp this year to be his DC, let alone he got Cam Coleman to get on that offense, which is already insane. They went out and got 2 portal transfer running backs that were like top 3 in the entire class. If Texas doesn't make it to a natty, it's a failure of a year. So they have no other choice but to be called loaded.
All right, Jonathan, we're moving over to you.
Similar kind of feeling here is privileged. He's got all the resources in the world. He's got the Lambos outside the facility out there. He's got the 5 stars. He gets the 5 stars in high school. He gets the 5 stars in the portal. He's got 5-star money. He's got a 5-star stripper wife. That guy is just privileged all around. I tell you what, and I totally agree. I think if he doesn't make the natty this season, it's a real disappointment. I'm not saying you got to fire the guy or put him on the hot seat or anything, but if you don't make the natty with the roster and the talent and the resources that he has in this current moment, I think it's an ultimate disappointment. And so for that reason, I think the word is privileged.
Caleb, what are you laughing about there?
Just the context of his lifestyle too. I didn't know that was a winning attribute, but we're gonna leave it at that.
So our next coach is going to be Lane Kiffin. So Caleb,
this one probably gave me the most trouble in terms of trying to figure out like what could I say, because there's so much I can say about Lane Kiffin. But I think you just wrap it up into viral. Like the guy just goes viral. 25-8. Whatever he does, he's going to make noise doing it. He can't do anything quietly. I mean, think about let's just go take a travel back in time to the day after the Egg Bowl and the heist that he put on Ole Miss as a whole. I mean, Twitter, that was some of the best burner Twitter days of my entire life. Seeing all the stuff come out of the crooks and crannies about what Lane was doing, them yoga sessions and at the sorority houses at Ole Miss. But in the process of that, was completely taking over and hijacking Sports Center and all of these sports coverages in the world just because the guy was going to jump from one ship to the next. And he's never been quiet about any of it. I mean, he went viral about getting off of social media. That's how you know the guy is big time.
All right, Jonathan, let's move over to yours.
Yeah, I'm bending the rules a little bit. My word is attention whore. Similar kind of concept here. I mean, you guys know the Lane Kiffin story. I mean, that guy is just he just walks out the room and commands attention for better or for worse. He loves it. He seeks it out. The whole leaving Ole Miss debacle and getting in bed with LSU is well researched and well reported on. But just other things like trolling Kirby Smart in the group chat with the SEC coaches. He's got his little thing going on with Paul Feinbaum when Feinbaum was kind of still a little relevant. It's just something to where I think Lane Kiffin cannot go a day without posting something or trying to get the attention of anybody involved, but more specifically media, fans, anybody who's willing to listen. And like you said, Caleb, yeah, he's apparently going 0 dark 30 and off social media, but we'll see. I bet if LSU starts winning those games, I'm sure he'll come back around on Twitter and start typing things out to everybody.
Not a gambler, but if I was to gamble on anything, I would say Lane Kiffin's going to reactivate his Twitter after they beat Ole Miss in week 3. I think it's going to get loud. He ain't going to have no choice but to get on there and run his mouth a little bit.
No doubt.
Caleb, the next coach is Kalen DeBoer.
this is probably going to not go over very well, but I'm going to call him a winner just because the guy, wherever he's been, no matter what year he's done, whatever circumstances he's gotten, he's won the game. I mean, the most embarrassing stain on him so far is losing a natty and losing to Florida State in week 1. And that week 1 loss ended up turning into a trip to the SEC championship game, and he beat Georgia at home like 3 weeks later. So look, the guy, say whatever you want to, he's done a heck of a job replacing Nick Saban. I mean, most people would just crack underneath the pressure alone, but he's been able to keep the ship afloat. They're still bringing in talent despite their kind of challenges that have been somewhat public with NIL stuff. I think he's done a heck of a job, and the guy is going to continue to do exactly what I have him as a word for, which is win.
All right, Jonathan.
It's sandbagger. And the reason it's sandbagger is because I know that Kalen DeBoer is actually a fairly good head coach. It's fairly obvious when you watch his teams play over the last few years, even going back to Fresno State. I just think he hasn't been able to put it all together, and maybe he kind of thinks he should be a little bit further along than he is. And that's not good nor bad in any particular sense. I just think a sandbagger just kind of is like, yeah, I'm pretty good. We have our OC from my time at Washington. I have my quarterback that I'm supposed to bring over here. He hasn't started a game. So I just think there's a lot to be left on the table for him, and we'll see what happens this year. But I know those Bama fans in Tuscaloosa and Alabama are not going to be too happy if he spits out another ending like he did last year.
All right, Caleb, your next coach is Pete Golding.
I said he's real. I mean, like you heard this guy at the press conferences talking about, you guys are just acting like there's never been money handed underneath the table. When he was talking about the tampering thing, he was like, all right, am I the only dude doing this? Me? You're going to come for me? Out of all this, out of everything that's went on, I'm the bad guy. I think he's just ultimately just very candid about everything he says, and it speaks to the players and it gets through his locker room. And people like him because honesty is respected, and it's also something that you can like say, okay, I can get behind this guy a little bit. You know what I mean? And follow him because he's not going to lead you astray, and he's working for your best interests. And Pete Golden is not going to do anything other than what Pete Golden thinks is the right thing to do, which is exactly what makes him a good football coach, and why I think there's potential for success at Ole Miss considering all the money stuff that they've already got built into that program.
All right, Jonathan.
My word for Pete Golding is frat. I don't know if it's just being in Oxford and Ole Miss and kind of the culture down there, or if it's the visor, or if it's the flow, the gray flow. Like, I don't know. It's very frat-esque, because that's kind of what I see out of him, not only personally, but also for the football team. Because I think a frat guy, I think you might think he's kind of confident. I mean, you walk in to a 7-Eleven with a fake ID, and he's walking in there like he's 42. He's got that kind of confidence about his team, especially with his returning quarterback Trinidad Chambliss and Kewan Lacey. I think they're pretty good on defense as well. I don't think they lost a whole ton. It seems like the team around him really loves playing for him, which I see really strong parallels in a fraternity. You play for your brothers, you play for your team. And so that's kind of why I chose that word for him.
Now, the next one, this is where it might get a little fun. We might have some choice words. Eli Drinkwitz, Caleb.
People probably not going to like this one either. I said he's an elevator because, I mean, what was Missouri football before he got there? Not great, right? I mean, I would love to hear somebody in the crowd like just rattle off who was the last head coach up there. I mean, you're going to have to know ball. I'm not going to spoil it. We'll see if we get some comments down in this comment section for this video. But, I mean, Missouri has been a top 25 team since he's got there. And in no way and shape and form in America has Missouri ever been like just a perennial top 25 team. I mean, you may go back to like when they first joined the SEC champion or the SEC conference, and they were making the championship game every year, but it was just kind of because of the way the East and the West was set up and just the lay of the land at the time. I think was a lot of the reason why they were able to get in then. I mean, he's got Austin Simmons in his building, and he's got good football players. Like, he can go toe to toe with the best teams in the country with Missouri, and that's a testament to how good of a football coach he is. And I think he has nothing but raised the expectation and the standard at Missouri since he's got there.
All right, Jonathan.
The word is troll. He's kind of like a Lane Kiffin Jr., just without the title, the prominence, I guess you would say, or at least kind of the backing that he's had. He's a good coach in my opinion, but I think he talks a little bit more for what he's done, not to diminish anything that he has done. Like, Caleb did a good job laying it out. He has taken Mizzou to a point where they're confident and they're kind of steady at 7 to 9 wins every year. It's a good spot to be. Trust me, I wish South Carolina could get there and be as consistent as they have. But even going back to 2 weeks ago during the SEC media days, he's got one of the softer. He's had one of the softer schedules and does have one of the softer schedules in the SEC year in and year out. And he's over there, beating his chest about the scheduling against the Big Ten. It's just like, I don't know. I think you kind of have to know your place at times, which, that's that hand up, something I probably need to do as well. But, I think he's a Lane Kiffin Jr., just not as much, backing behind him. So I'll give him troll for my work.
We've got 10 more to go. Caleb, we're moving to Ryan Silverfield, Arkansas head coach.
My word is Walmart, because if you don't get Walmart on board, they're not going to get any good anytime soon, son. It's hard to win in Fayetteville, Arkansas. He's got to find a way to get the NIL and the revenue packages to equate to something similar as the other guys in the SEC. Like, Kentucky's outspending him. I would not be shocked if at this point now with Bandy's rise that Arkansas is probably the cheapest spender in the entire conference, especially on football. I mean, they were just cutting sports left and right, like Olympic sports last year, because they didn't have enough cash. So better get the checkbook right, buddy.
Jonathan, you have a word that kind of fits that mold of what Caleb's saying. What's your word?
Yep, absolutely. It's broke. So right along the same lines as Caleb was saying, you better get Walmart, you better get Tyson Chicken in there, because otherwise you're going to be looking for a new head coach in 2 to 3 years. And at that point, it doesn't really make sense. You know what I mean? So I think Arkansas, they've been kind of up and down. They just don't have any players, really. That's really what it comes down to. I thought Sam Pittman was a fun, likable coach. I thought he was good at times. He took him to a couple bowl games here and there. But at the end of the day, if you don't have money in this day and age, even to spend on a couple big guys, like I'm a South Carolina fan, so I'll just link it back to us. Like, we spend money on Sellers, Stewart, and Nick Harbor, and those are going to be our 3 guys this year. Yeah, we need them to perform, but they have that talent level where Arkansas, I don't think you point at anybody on that roster and say anything close to them about. I don't even know. I wouldn't even want to guess at how much the top player is making in Arkansas, but I can't imagine it'd be high up on half the league's board or even half the country's board.
All right, it's time to Caleb. John Summerall, what you got for him?
Spark is the word. Look, if you don't believe this, you're just being ignorant. When Florida has a decent football team and a head coach that runs his mouth and he gets hot down there on Saturdays like it always does, and we sell out, there's a little bit more energy and juice to that place than you'll just find any other SEC school. And I'm not saying that just because I'm the fan now. And you go talk to any of these other folks, like go listen to Josh Pate talk about Florida football. Go listen to whoever talk about Florida football and what it means to be down there. I just told you guys earlier, they've been pretty terrible the last 6 years. We've sold out every home game. It doesn't ever affect the results from the fan base. But now that you got some new juice in there, you got the right people in the building, new coordinator, new quarterback, a little bit more money spent in other places. Apparently, the offensive lineman couldn't even bench 250 when Billy Napier was there. Like, it's just a different level of juice. Like, the guy's even barking on Twitter. He's telling people, I'm going to throw my podium at you for your phone ringing. Like, that's juice. That's juice. And that's the spark that Florida football has needed since Sport Billy would come in there and wrestle with his water bottle, not trying to get the top off and just, we just didn't play at the level that we thought we'd execute to today. And we would try and look at our systems and be back better next week.
Yeah, I do need to ask Caleb. I tried to ask you when he called out that guy at media days a couple weeks ago. I mean, did you not see that thing that was a little crazy? Or, I mean, what was that? Seemed a little out there.
I think he is crazy. That's the good thing. I mean, it's
good rebuttal. Good rebuttal, right?
It's what we want. It's exactly what we're looking for out of Florida football nowadays. And yeah, I mean, is it a joke? Is it not? The good thing about John Summerall is you don't know. Like, you can't tell if the dude's serious as a heart attack if he's just effing with you. That's macho right there in one word.
All right. Jonathan, what do you have for Caleb's head coach?
Another time where I kind of bent the rules a little bit. I got a new kid in school. I think he's agreed with Caleb. I actually do like John Summerall a lot. I think he's going to do a fairly good job at Florida. He's got that right kind of juice and if factor that you didn't see out of Billy Napier. And that's kind of why I compare him to the new kid in school. He's maybe a freshman coming in that's supposed to be, a badass, running back or something, or a badass point guard that, you guys were missing from the team before. And he comes in and he starts right away on varsity. He's kind of got that it factor. He's kind of got that swagger and that confidence about him.
Now it is time to talk about none other than Jonathan's head coach, Shane Beamer. Caleb.
I'm sorry, Jonathan, but I'm sure you probably agree with this. My word is boiling. That seat is hot, boy. If he don't win some games, if it don't get more than probably 7 wins, there's a path where he wins 7 games and still gets fired this year. They just got to come up with the money to be able to do it. Had the most embarrassing comeback loss I can remember in college football in recent memory. And he's got 3 probably first-round talents on his team, and they are all at the prime positions that you would want contributors to be at. I think there's a moment when Shane Beamer went 9-3, and like I was on this podcast standing on the table saying that they needed to be in the playoff. And now you're looking around like, yeah, it's going to be hard for him to not, be working to somewhere else next year. I think like he's in the Mike Norvell area of the world in that department. So I'm going to say boiling, because he's got to hit it just right in order for him to not get fired.
All right, Jonathan, let's see what you got to say about your head ball coach.
The seat's definitely boiling. My word was yapper, because every fucking goddamn game, you just win or lose, he's just talking for like 30 minutes in the press conference. And it's like, as a fan, especially when your heart's getting, ripped out, and you're watching your team every single Saturday, and that, you lose 8 of those games, and a lot of them are 1-score games. A couple of them are obvious blowouts from the first whistle. And you're just sitting there listening to your coach, just keep going on and on about this and that and the excuses. And it's just, I don't want to hear the excuses. Especially, 5 years in, I'm not looking for that kind of talk from my head coach after a game, win or lose. I want results. I want you to come into the press conference after a bad loss, say 2 minutes worth of things, and then move on and then get better. We gotta win this year. The schedule doesn't ease up, but I think Gary, you and I were talking about this the other day. Like, it doesn't, at a certain point, it doesn't really matter what the schedule looks like. You got to go out and win. You got to get the players and the team and have them come together and play as a cohesive unit, all 3 phases of the game, and kick some ass and get to 8, 9, 10 wins consistently. So I think that's where he's got to be this year. I think if he goes 7-5 against this schedule, it's tough, because at that point, probably all 3 of the guys we had mentioned earlier, and Caleb just mentioned as well, all 3 of those guys are probably gone at the end of the year. So what do we do? What are we looking forward to if those guys leave? We go 7-5 and we bring Beamer. I think for me, the biggest thing is the O-line play. If I don't see an improvement there, and we win 7 games, I think he should be gone. I think if we get to 8, no matter what, I think we're okay to move on to next year with him as head coach. Just the personality in terms of how he talks after games is really something that irks me as a fan. I know it irks Gary too. I'm sure you got a lot to say on that. Maybe you've convinced me a little bit in the past.
Yeah, to go into what both of you guys are saying, he's a boiling yapper for sure. And even if he wasn't boiling, he'd still be yapping. The guy, I watched pretty much every SEC conference media day, podium press conference. That guy just won't stop talking. But also, you're right. After the game, I compare him to Kirby, and Kirby hates. Like, you can tell a lot of coaches just don't even want to be in that room. Shane Beamer loves being in that media room. Caleb, next one up, Josh Heupel.
Steady. I think he's done a fabulous job, considering he's navigated the Nico Amaliava situation. Tennessee has been kind of up and down. They've had to rely on defense. They've had to rely on offense. They've had him Hooker. They've had Joey Aguilar and been very competitive. I think that Josh Heupel, you say whatever you want to about Tennessee football and where it's at now. Same thing as Eli Drinkwitz. The standard is new. 9 games is kind of like their ballpark, and they're going to find a way to get somewhere close to that, or at least compete in, 9 or 10 games a year and have a pathway to excellence in the SEC. They were in the playoff 2 years ago. I think he's done a good job so far, stabilized the place, and it's a good marker of success for a coach if you're an offensive guy and your defense can carry you to the playoffs, no matter what.
All right, Jonathan, Josh Heupel.
My word for him is waiting to get over the mountaintop. Again, similar thoughts to Caleb. He's been a really good coach for them. There's no 2 ways around it. He's made the playoffs. He's beaten Bama a few times. Those are things that before him, there was 20 years of just absolute silence from the Vols. I do think they have a really, really talented team as well. They added Jim Knowles as their defensive coordinator this year. They're going to be really solid on defense again. And then on the offensive front, they've been able to run the ball every single year with him. So I don't have any doubts about them being able to pound the rock this season. The wide receivers, they have a ton of talent in there. It all comes down to the quarterback, which has talent in that room as well. I think it was the number 1 overall QB, Faison Brandon from last year, as well as George McIntyre from 2 years ago. It's just kind of waiting on that timing. Maybe he needs a little bit softer schedule. Maybe he needs something on the O line to really just kind of click it into gear, but he's waiting and he's steady, and I think they'll get there at some point.
All right, Caleb, we're moving over to Kentucky. Will Stein.
You guys talking reckless at the podium last week, just like what you're talking about. Confident is the word. I mean, did you guys hear this clip where he was like, somebody asked him like, what makes you think you have belief that you're gonna be able to turn Kentucky around? And he was like, oh, this is gonna sound terrible. Me. Come on now. There's not many people in the world that are just coming out and be like, yeah, trust me, I'm going to get us to where we need to go. Like, just F the coaches that are in the locker room, F the players. And I like the confidence. It's just a pretty bold thing to say, like, when it's like the first time somebody's seen you wear your school colors and speak. He better win games.
Yeah, Kirk Signetti-esque. Okay, Jonathan.
My word for Will Stein is overrated, and it strictly comes off of that same comment that Caleb just mentioned. Who the F is this guy to come in here swinging his dick all over the place? Exactly, acting like he's Kurt Signetti when he hasn't done shit even close to what Signetti did. It just leaves a bad taste in your mouth, and I can't wait for South Carolina to whoop that ass this year. Probably about 9 or 8 other teams, but we'll see what they can do. I mean, they have Kenny Minchie. They brought him in. Don't know a whole bunch about them because why would I? It's Kentucky.
Jonathan, I think you're going to like Caleb's word here. Caleb, what do you have for Brent Venables?
Yeah, sorry, Brent. I said he is James Franklin. If this thing does not hit the right way, because, I mean, they got a schedule on them now. Let's say they lose to Michigan and this thing just goes downhill quick. Guy could get fired before it's quite possible somebody that made the playoff recently as last year could get the can again. And, I mean, they've spent a lot of money on that team over there, and the defense is decent. But if John Mateer don't sling that bad boy around like he's supposed to last year, and if his thumb's still numb, we might be on another James Franklin situation.
Jonathan, so what do you got for Brent Venables?
Not trustworthy is my one word. I think the proof is in the pudding with old Brent Venables. I mean, he's so roller coaster up and down throughout his tenure at Oklahoma. It's kind of hard to place exactly what you think is going to happen, which that's the kind of the beauty about college football. We won't really know till the pads start popping and scores start counting. I've never been a Brent Venables guy. Maybe that's stemming from my South Carolina fandom when he was DC at Clemson for all those championship runs. No doubt a great defensive coordinator, but I think he's more on the Will Muschamp type of archetype. He's a better coordinator than he is a better head coach. And that's okay. You just got to kind of know your place. And again, the James Franklin comparison is pretty good. He's not great in the big games. He's wins, most of the other games that you'd think he would win. But at the end of the day, I'm just not trusting him to get my team to where I want them.
All right. Next up, Mike Elko. What do you got here, Caleb?
Culture. It's all about culture. This guy has pretty much gotten Texas A&M in about 2 years to believing that they are worthy of a national championship appearance. Like, they can play ball with anybody and anybody any given Saturday. And I mean, everybody talk about how big his hoodie is and, is he hiding a watermelon under there, what it is? No, he's storing ball knowledge under there, okay? He's got these guys. He knows how to run a team. I mean, Texas A&M, you say whatever you want to. Like last year, they had Marcel Reed as a quarterback. I think very poorly of Marcel Reed, just full transparency. And they were able to will their way to the college football playoff and nearly made a SEC championship game. They didn't fold the last 2 games of the year that they played. So if they just finish, which is a good marker of building a culture of a team, like just what we're talking about, right? This is year 2, Mike Elko. We're going into year 3. He's just coming off the playoff appearance. Can he get back?
Jonathan, Mike Elko.
Ball coach. He's just a really good coach, in my opinion. Even when he was the defensive coordinator at A&M, I think when Jimbo Fisher was there from like 2018 to 2021 or something like that, their defenses were really, really good. I think a majority of the time, the reason that they were in the games that they were in during that time period. Then he goes to Duke. He goes 7-5 at Duke. I like the way he carries himself, his demeanor, similar thing to what Caleb just said. Like, I didn't even think about that. Like, how taking a guy like Marcel Reed to 11 wins last year. I mean, that's pretty damn impressive. That guy's not a very good quarterback. He's an okay college quarterback, but he's not going pro. And the ability to coach the O-line as well. You see consistent draft picks coming from him along the offensive line, and I think they lost 4 or 5 of their starters from last year, and they're having to replace them again. But I don't have any worry that they're going to be able to move the football up and down because of that O-line, because of the way they block and the run game and the running backs that they have. Marcel Reed doesn't have to be, a world beater. So the way he sets up his teams, I think he's got a little old head ball coach in him, a little Steve Spurrier.
Alex Golish, Caleb.
Energy, I think just like the style that they play. I've heard this dude talk multiple times this offseason at some coaching things leading up to the new season that everybody's about to embark on. The guy's just upbeat and positive about everything. Everything's happening fast. Like, it's all fast tempo. I mean, he's obsessed with snapping the ball every 16 seconds or whatever it is, which is an insane clip. It's exactly what Auburn needs. I mean, you're going away from the guy that used to have tea times on Tuesday afternoons before practice started regularly, and the same dude that was also at SEC Media Days last year talking about, yeah, we're going to be good. We're going to be really, really good. You guys better watch out for Auburn football. And turned out nobody needed to watch out for Auburn football. But the energy that Golish is going to bring, the fast-paced tempo, Byron Brown will be an improvement at quarterback because it's hard to get worse than what they had last year at Auburn.
Jonathan, what you got for Alex Golish?
My word is one-hit wonders. It's not really speaking about what he did at USF because that's no doubt impressive. I love the quarterback. I think that Boise State game was one of them where he was just trucking dudes. I love that, but I don't know if it's going to translate into the SEC. I think they're going to have some success this year, and that's going to be the best season of his tenure at Auburn. I'm not a massive fan of bringing G5 head coaches into the SEC, especially at programs where they expect you to be now in the playoffs or trying to win championships within a couple years. And Auburn is absolutely one of those places. So I think it could get pretty rough for him if he doesn't start performing better than the last guy within a couple seasons.
All right, Caleb, Jeff Lebby.
Scrappy. I just talked about this guy earlier, how they were able to fight scratch and claw with the Texases of the world. I mean, was it 2 years ago? They gave Georgia a lot of trouble. We talk about bottom of the barrel NIL. I mean, Mississippi State's down there hanging with Arkansas. Okay. And somehow or another, he's still getting pretty decent players in there. I mean, he's had some high draft pick receivers. He's got a really good quarterback in Kamario Taylor that is a Mississippi boy through and through, but he's good. It'll be a name that you'll be able to learn about as the season goes on. I can promise you, go and bookmark this. Kamario Taylor is a really good quarterback, and Jeff Lebby is going to be competitive against teams that don't expect. A lot of fans in the SEC are looking at that Mississippi State game. They're like, hey, we can win that game. You better watch out.
What do you think about him, Jonathan?
Yeah, I think he's underrated. Very similar thinking to Caleb here. The guy went 2-10 in his first year and then 5-7 last year. He's obviously made some good improvement in the program. His players and staff, it seems to be, and the fan base too, seem to be, believing in him and the way he does things. I think his offense is electric. I mean, hell, last year when they played Texas, they were winning that game by a good margin. I think at a place like Mississippi State, if you can consistently go to bowl games, beat, top 15 teams, I think you beat Arizona State. And I think he's got a solid team to work around, and the offense that he runs makes his presence a little bit harder to deal with on the football field. So, yeah, I'd go underrated for him. I wouldn't mind if he was a head coach of my team. Maybe I would take that back, but yeah, he's a good coach. I like him.
All right, last one on the board, Clark Lee, Caleb.
Clark Lee is a builder. Vandy was the bottom of the barrel in the SEC, and now he looked like they were this close to making the playoff last year. Really had to have the ball bounce their way a couple times in the last 2 years. They have had some incredible success. The guy loves Vanderbilt football, has built that team into being what it is. I mean, they went and got the number 1 player in the country this year. You got to build something worth talking about in order to even get the attention of somebody like that. So I think it's super impressive what he's been able to do.
All right, finish us off here, Jonathan, with what you got for Clark Lee.
Yeah, my word for Clark Lee is fullback. Not only did he play fullback at Vandy, but he's just got that nose to the grindstone, I'll do whatever it takes to win type of attitude that I like to see in a head coach, similar to Mike Elko. Kind of intertwine both of those words, ball coach and fullback. Was willing to do the dirty work back in his playing days, was the defensive coordinator over at Notre Dame for a little while. They had awesome defenses, and then took everything that he had accumulated throughout his time through football and brought it to Vandy, and almost instantaneously made him a success.
All right, and that is talking one word for all the SEC head coaches. Let's get into the preview. I know Lane Kiffin's at LSU, but he's not really a first-year head coach in terms of the SEC. Alex Golesh, all right, Will Stein, Ryan Silverfield, John Sumrall, Pete Golding, all first-year head coaches. Caleb, which one, is it your own, or do you think maybe somebody else? Which one of these guys is going to have the most successful first year?
Well, it better be Pete Golding. I mean, he's got Trinidad Chambliss and Keywan Lacey back, and all the band of brothers that was able to almost go to the national championship game last year. If Golesh or Sumrall win more games than Pete Golding does at Ole Miss this year, there's going to be a lot of loud conversation at the end of the year about who needs to keep their job and who doesn't. Like, Pete Golding did a lot for Ole Miss's organization in order to like guide them through the playoffs, but stuff gets forgotten pretty quick. Go ask James Franklin.
Jonathan, tell us what you got for who you think will be the most successful first-year head coach in the SEC this season.
I got John Sumrall. I think he's going to do well. I think he'll probably get to 6-7 wins at least. I mean, he better with the schedule. It's not a murderer's row by any means. You get Florida State in the non-con, you should easily win that. You got a couple easy games late. Kentucky, Vanderbilt might be tough, but you get them at home. And, you play Florida Atlantic, Campbell to start, Auburn. I think there's only a handful of games where you kind of notch it down right now before week 0 even begins as a loss. And I just like their team a little bit more. I think they have a little bit more talent than Auburn does. I think Billy Napier, while, obviously we know what happened there. He's not the best head coach in the world. He still left a solid roster available for Sumrall and the coaching staff too. And bringing over Buster Faulkner from Georgia Tech, I think that's really going to help, having him call plays. We'll see about the quarterback situation, whether it's going to be the kid from GT or Tramel Jones. I think they have a solid opportunity to correct what they did from last year.
All right. Well, on my board, we're going to have 3 different ones. I do believe a little bit more, and I've been talking about it all offseason. I believe in Alex Golesh, and I've written down a couple reasons why. He brought 13 players from South Florida, 11 of them on offense. All right. And that's including Byron Brown. And if you didn't know, Byron Brown, I don't care about the arm motion. You guys can tell me I'm crazy. I don't care about it right now. I'd have to see it to really matter. Or I'd have to see it matter to make it matter. 2 full seasons as the quarterback for South Florida. In 2023, threw for over 3,000 yards, 26 touchdowns, 809 rushing yards, 11 touchdowns. And then last season, again, over 3,000 passing yards, 28 touchdowns, over 1,000 yards rushing, 14 touchdowns. All right, they're bringing the running back Nike Davenport. Hopefully I said that name right. 5 wide receivers and a tight end, so a lot of the returning production. DJ Durkin staying as the the defensive coordinator. He was the interim head coach for a little bit there last season whenever the whole Hugh Freeze situation happened. I think that's going to be huge. They've had a top 30 defense last 2 seasons. Really good against the run specifically. So I think when you pair all of that stuff up, that's what's kind of given me a little more faith for Alex Golesh to be able to get it done, specifically because Auburn's main thing the last couple seasons has been that they haven't really had an offense that's really been clicking. All right. And for a guy like Hugh Freeze being their head coach, that was something that they really thought they were going to end up getting. Alex Golesh is coming to specifically change that, at least in year 1. I think he's got the talent, the continuity, everything you need from a head coach and basically from a head coach or what you're wanting and from your players. That was probably the other word I should have said. I think Alex Golesh and Auburn. Now, look, last year I was probably a little higher on Auburn. This is just one team I've been talking to myself into all offseason. So I'm going to go with Alex Golesh as the most successful head coach in year 1. I've gone through their schedule. I know none of the schedules in the SEC are easy. They've got one of the easier ones in terms of an SEC schedule, though, coming up this season. So all 3 of us going with separate ones. Go ahead and put your money down on if it's Pete Golding, Alex Golesh, or John Sumrall. The next thing we're going to talk about is sleeper team. Who do you think is going to be a team that maybe no one's talking about? Maybe they make the SEC championship, or maybe they just, kind of find their way to third or fourth place. If we go to a system where, the top 4 teams in the SEC, they'll be in that 3-6 game or something. Caleb, who do you think will be a sleeper team in the SEC this upcoming season?
This is a tough one to me because I just don't know, is there many SEC teams that we're really not talking about? And so then I went to okay, who's getting the most buzz? Well, Texas, Georgia, obviously those two, right? And then you're going to get LSU because of Lane Kiffin, okay? And after that, is it Bama? I really think it's Ole Miss, the people really talk about. So to me, it's just me. If it's not Alabama, which I know is crazy, we're talking about Alabama's a sleeper team. Well, nobody knows who their quarterback's going to be. Nobody's really saying, oh, well, they're going to be my national championship pick this year. Oh, maybe they can go and run. If Bama figures out a quarterback and Keelan Russell is the starter and he's as good as what I think he can be, they could definitely do something. But if it's not them, you say, well, they've won so many national championships the last couple of years, they can't be slept on. Okay. It's Florida. It's UF. There's not another team in the SEC with the roster and the dynamite in the warehouse that could go boom, just like any other team. I mean, you got the OC, you got Philo, you got a very, very talented defense. You got a couple transfers coming in the offensive line. Penn State's O-line coach also coming down there, who's a Florida alum and did a fabulous job with Penn State up there. Obviously, cranked out multiple first-round draft picks. Yeah, I mean, if you're talking about a team that nobody's thinking okay, you're the 7.5 win, 8 win area, I think it's Florida is the one team that could supersede expectations this year in the SEC, bar and away, but compared to anybody else in the crowd.
I got Tennessee. I think if there's a couple games that break their way this year, you could see them sitting all of a sudden up there at 10-2 and being grabbing that 8 or 9 seed in the playoffs. Their schedule is tougher, but they get their big games at home. So you got week 4, Texas comes into town. And then you got Alabama that comes into town in week 7. And then you got LSU comes into town at week 12. Those are big opportunities where, so we think, all those teams are going to be fairly highly ranked. And you have an opportunity at home, all 3 of those weeks to make a big splash. If you win 1 of those games and clear the rest, or if you win 2 of those games and maybe fall on your toes a little bit the rest of the way, I think there's a real opportunity to do it. And like I mentioned, Jim Knowles coming on the defensive end. I think they're going to be really solid there. They have talent out the ass in the wide receiver room, the O-line and the run game. I just trust Heupel at this point to have 1,000-yard back and a really great rushing game. And then all it comes down to is the quarterback. And like I said before, there's talent there too. It's just which guy is going to emerge. It's not as widely talked about as the Alabama QB battle, but I think it's similar profiles in terms of talent, So that's who I'm going to take as of right now, or at least somebody who I could see kind of popping up because of those big opportunities on the schedule.
All right. So, yeah, I've got Tennessee as my sleeper school too, Jonathan. Look, you named a bunch of the reasons I'm probably going to go through, so I'm not going to spend tons of time on it. But look, the quarterback situation, whether it's Faison Brandon or George McIntyre, you got to trust Josh Heupel is going to make the right call there. The defense has a complete overhaul. Jim Knowles is coming in there. They're bringing some impact guys back. Amari Campbell had over 100 tackles last year. The Arian Carter situation, he got in a little bit of a trouble with the draft situation, suspended a couple games, but he's still a big guy that's going to come back next year. The linebacker room is stacked. They hit the portal hard to find some key pieces in the secondary, which I think is huge. Big games at home, you mentioned it, Texas, Auburn, Bama, LSU. They don't have to play Georgia this year. That's a huge thing. I'm not sure if you guys saw the SEC Media Days thing where some guy asked Kirby, are you upset you don't have Tennessee on the schedule because that's an easy win? Look, laugh whatever. It's a fact. Georgia's beaten them a bunch of times in a row. And look, last year they had a lot of things just not go their way. The missed field goal against Georgia, the pick 6 against Bama before half, the fumble return early in the game against Oklahoma. Look, they have got the right guy with Heupel. I think if some things go their way, if they fix that defense quickly, if the quarterback situation is on their way, like you said, they've had everything else figured out under him. I think Tennessee has got a chance to make some noise this year if they can win some of those big games at home. So I'm going with Tennessee as well coming season. The next thing I want to talk about is who is a player in the SEC that you think may be a bust this season, maybe getting a little hype, warranted, not warranted, whatever you think, you think may fall flat on their face in 2026. Jonathan, let's start with you.
One player that I think is going to be a bust this year is going to be Jared Curtis from Vanderbilt. This is number 1 QB coming in from the past recruiting cycle, was going to go to Georgia, then flip to Vanderbilt. I just don't see how Vanderbilt is going to be able to reload from last year. That's where I see it not being, a super successful season for him. On top of him being a true freshman in the SEC, their top, talent from Vanderbilt. I think they had 5 or 6 draft picks. Eli Stowers was their number one receiver. The tight end got drafted by the Eagles. He's gone, and it takes a while to get your feet wet in the SEC, as we've seen. Not many true freshmen come in and just light it up. And for all the hype and the 5 stars and the recruiting ranking and hype and talk around him, I'm not sure that the production will match.
My player bust this year, look, I don't like taking shits on guys all the time. Sometimes I do, but I'm going to go with Sam Leavitt. And look, I like Lane Kiffin. I like LSU. I like what he did in the portal. But just to look at this objectively, all right, Sam Leavitt barely played last year. He played about half the season, had an injury, and then that kind of lingered in to this upcoming season. He has not really participated all offseason. You guys can fact check me on that, but I'm pretty sure he has not been a full participant or a participant at all this offseason for LSU, so that could be a huge issue for him. Let's call a spade a spade. He's 1-2 against SEC teams, lost to Mississippi State last year. That's not a team that you need to be losing to if you're an LSU Tiger. That they're not gonna like that at all. There's a guy named Husan Longstreet. I'm not sure if I'm saying his name right. I hope I am, but he was a transfer quarterback in this class as well. He came from USC. He was a 5-star before. Last year, we all thought Austin Simmons was going to be the starting quarterback for Ole Miss. He was for like a game and a half, and then Trinidad came in and took over. I'm not saying that'll happen, but Sam Leavitt may not be ready. The injuries may be lingering. It could cause some problems for him. So I think if we just got to go out here and pick someone that we think may be a bust, I think this is a spot where I feel comfortable saying maybe Sam Leavitt's not ready for the conference. Maybe he's going to have to weather the storm, and maybe it's a little too much for him. So I'm going to go with Sam Leavitt.
Before I just throw mine out there, I do want to say that I had an argument on my burner about Sam Leavitt and some other quarterbacks in the SEC not too long ago. But my thing was, I ain't seen Lane Kiffin coach a quarterback and him be bad yet. So I'm still holding out on that. We'll see. And maybe the injury stuff does come back. My bust player is not going to make my roommate Tony happy. And when I'm talking about my roommate Tony, I'm talking about Auburn. And this is not going to be good for Garrison's little, goalish. I don't think Byron Brown's going to make it through a whole season, man. Those athletes move a little different than the ones that he saw at South Florida last year. I mean, I remember watching the Memphis game last year they had, which was insane, and he was just going in there and barreling in, and they didn't have another way to run the ball. I don't think Auburn's going to out-talent people to a point that they don't need Byron Brown's legs. In fact, the coaches are going to want to use them. I'm just saying, man, they lay some damn lumber in the SEC. Now, you're not going to be able to do that. And Byron Brown's not going to be able to tote the ball 10, 15 times a game and expect to make it through all 9 games. I mean, there's even times last year, even when he was at USF, he was playing beat up a little bit, but he was the Haynes King Warrior. Well, Haynes King sits out games here and there when you play like that. It's not going to work. And I just think at a certain point that his body's going to break down. And yes, they may have pretty decent playmakers. If he had Cam Coleman, I'd feel a lot better about the situation, but he doesn't. I don't think that it's going to be nearly as great as what it was at South Florida.
All right, the moment we've all been waiting for. Let's talk about who we think is going to play in the SEC championship and who is going to win it. Caleb, we're going to start with you.
Texas is like the bingo, when you get the bingo card and there's a star in the middle, that's Texas. So we're going to throw those in there. I think Kirby brings Georgia back to the SEC title game. I mean, they were the youngest team in football last year in the conference and were able to go do it. They didn't lose a ton of people. In fact, outside of Zachariah Branch's loss, I think they probably got a little better. If I would be very, very confident in this if I didn't think Gunnar Stockton could screw it up. I really do. I'm telling you, and I hate to do that. I hate to do this to Georgia fans and folks, but I did in my coaching endeavors this offseason, watched a fair amount of Georgia tape, all 11, from behind the center, how coaches watch it. Gunnar Stockton leaves a lot on the table to be reckoned for. In my mind, just looking at it as a QB coach, and I'm not the guy, I'm not University of Georgia's QB coach. So, hands up. Maybe I don't know what I'm talking about. I think I have a decent idea. I still think regardless though, Kirby's going to get that team in contention in December. Like, there's just no way around it. It's going to happen. Texas, they finally do the thing. There's just, if they stay healthy, they should not lose. If they stay healthy, they should not lose.
All right. I've also got Texas playing in the SEC championship. I've got them playing against Georgia. So we do have the same matchup, but I do think Georgia is going to win this one. Look, Georgia is won the SEC the last 2 years. They own Texas, so they're going to get it done. But even just looking past that, as we look into the buildup of what could happen, I know Gunnar Stockton has had some problems or, missing reads, yada, yada, yada. He's going to get better. Players get better, and he's going to be one of those guys that does it. The schedule, one of the easier in the SEC, if not the easiest. I know they got to go to Bama. I know they got to go to Ole Miss. But look, other than that, I feel pretty confident about this team's schedule and not really slipping up where they shouldn't. And I really feel good about the defense. I feel really good about the running backs and Nate Frazier and Chauncey Bowens. We'll find out about the receiver room, but I think I've got to trust Mike Bobo that he's going to figure out a way to get it done. In terms of the defense, I really love what we've got. KJ Bolden, Ellis Robinson, Chris Cole, Raylan Wilson, Elijah Griffin up front. I mean, tons of names that I'm really excited about seeing. I think we'll get back to that really good form. I think Georgia is in a really prime spot to get back to the SEC championship and win it. And Texas side, I really just I'm gonna have to make them see. I'm gonna have to see them fold, because I know people like to say, "Oh, well, they're not. Well, they're not as good as you say they are." Well, they've got everything they need. So I think Texas will end up there. I know the schedule's tough, but every schedule is tough in the SEC, and they've got the dudes. I think Will Muschamp, it's a huge pickup for the Texas Longhorns that no one's really talking about. So with that, I'm going to pick Texas to make the SEC championship, but I've got Georgia beating them in the SEC championship.
Yeah, those are two really good picks. I mean, Georgia and Texas, obvious front runners to win the SEC or be in the championship at least as well. I kind of went a different route. I really love LSU, just the idea of what that can be. Then you take a look at the schedule and it's like, they kind of play everybody who's going to be contending for that top spot. Mm-hmm. So my thought process is, I'm putting Georgia in there, and still they show me otherwise. I feel fairly comfortable with saying that they're going to be in the game. I do think they're going to win it, and I think they're going to be beating Alabama in the SEC championship game. And it kind of just goes back to what I think about DeBoer. I think he's a lot better than what he's portraying. I just don't think he's had the right ingredients yet. And the path is a little bit easier for Bama than it is somebody like Texas or somebody like LSU in terms of who they play in the SEC, where they play those games. Now, again, it's kind of like what Gary was saying too. There's not necessarily an easy route in the SEC, but I think it's a little bit lesser of a path, so to say. And I think it'll eventually just end up with them losing to Georgia, so it won't really matter in the end. But they'll get to the playoffs. I think LSU will be in the playoffs too, and Texas will be in the playoffs. I think those are the top four kind of front runners you're looking at to win the SEC this year.
Texas is in that spot this year. And that's why I say, like, sometimes in order to bulletproof your whole situation, you just need to wear enough Kevlar. And that's exactly what these guys got. They went and paid for a bunch of ammunition and a bunch of bulletproof vests in order to get them through the season. I mean, even them just getting rid of, telling Wisner to bounce so they can go get two running backs. That is a distinct choice that you need more depth in the running back. And it's tried and true to the message that they're trying to go for. Like Sark's saying, this is it.
All right, we're going to move on from college football. We're going to go talk about the NFL, and we're going to start in the NFC South. That is where we are at. The Atlanta, Georgia, the Atlanta Falcons, the Carolina Panthers, the New Orleans Saints, the Tampa Bay Bucks. One of the worst divisions in football. It has not been very kind the last couple years to watch this division. Look, there's not a lot of playoff wins the last couple years for this division. I think they had the least amount in the last 5 years. So, Caleb, I'll start with you before we really get into everything. Why does the NFC South suck so bad?
It's kind of like a bad meal. I mean, you just got a couple different spices and a couple ingredients that are just not where they need to be. The rice is overcooked. The beef is a little dry. You know what I'm saying? That's what's going on in this division. The Panthers have had terrible ownership and no quarterback since Cam Newton left. the Saints have been in cap hell since I think I graduated high school. Like they have been doing the whole limbo thing with who they're paying and what, when, and where, and void years, this and that. The Bucks have like 3 years of relevancy since 2003, and it's because of Tom Brady. And then the Falcons, like they have had Desmond Ritter as their quarterback for a couple of the seasons that they've had these last couple of years, and that's just not NFL football. Like, I mean, you can find he is below replacement level. And that is what this division has been getting. And it's crazy because, like, go back to like drop yourself in 2015. Matt Ryan and Julio Jones are in the middle of doing the thing. Drew Brees is throwing for 5,000 yards a year, which at no time at that point, that was kind of like unheard of as quarterbacks. Like it wasn't really happening. He was doing it every year. You had Cam Newton win MVP. I mean, the Panthers went like 15-1 or 14-2 one year. And even the Bucks were still able to compete at certain levels, but they're the only team in this division that's won a Super Bowl in the last 15 years. So there's been greatness of streaks in this conference, but yeah, you've had some really bad quarterback luck and some really bad, like, all these teams kind of coming out of a run and trying to rebuild, and it just has not looked good. And that's why you've had a lot of 7 and 9s going to the playoffs out of this group.
I mean, it's got to be quarterback play and GM over the last, probably 5-10 years. I think about the Falcons specifically. I mean, we were drafted. There was a point 2 or 3 years ago. Thank goodness we changed brass a little bit and got some new guys in, but. We were drafting guys from Montana State in the second round. It's like, maybe we need to do some more investing into our scouting department and to the guys who are out on the road checking out players every week, because, I watched games every single Saturday and I saw, 100 better players than these guys who we've been drafting over the last few years. So I think in part it's misses and bad injury luck at times and things of that nature. But for the Falcons specifically, I mean, just no appetite to be good at quarterback. It's honestly embarrassing, because when you have a generational player like Bijan Robinson and guys like Drake London and even guys on the O line who have been rock solid for a long time, and you just can't put anything meaningful on the field at the QB position. It's a tough look. And then I mean, the Panthers and the Saints are right there with us. It's not like one team is a whole lot worse than the other. One's been, the party pooper of the group, and the Bucks have just been able to take advantage over the last few years, which good for them. But it's not even like they're, a top, 7 or 8 team anyways, when it comes down to it. So I think it really just, it comes down to the players and then, the QBs. Other than that, what can you do? I mean, that's it. Yeah.
All right, and so now we're going to build an NFC South super team. All right, the rules are you get a quarterback, a running back, 2 receivers, tight end, offensive line, defense, and coach. I'm going to go ahead and start off. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure you subscribe. You'll see the graphic right now. At quarterback, I've got Baker Mayfield. All right, look, it's not a heavy division of great quarterbacks. I think Baker's, top 15-ish quarterback, so I got to go with him. Running back, Bijan Robinson. This should be a unanimous pick. Bijan is the number 1 running back in the NFL. No surprise there. Drake London as well, probably the top receiver in this division. At wide receiver 2, you could probably go a couple different ways. I do think Ted McMillan, though, Offensive Rookie of the Year last year, is the way I'm going to be going. Tight end, Kyle Pitts. That says a lot about the division as well. I know he had a solid season last year, but it not a strong division in terms of tight end, so I'm going with Kyle Pitts. Offensive line, I know the Bucks have got some really solid stars, but last year the Falcons gave up the least amount of sacks in the division. They've got a really good run game, so I've also decided to go with the Falcons there. In terms of the defense, James Pierce Jr., he'll come back at some point. Jalen Walker is still a stud. Look, we've got Avion Terrell to go with AJ Terrell now after the draft this past year. Jesse Bates is still back there. We've got some absolute dogs on this team. Jeff Ulbrich has done a great job making this team better, and last year they had a lot of takeaways. Coach Steven Stefanski is going to be my coach as well. I really like what he is done in Cleveland, and I think he's going to bring it to Atlanta. So that is my squad right there. I know that was quick, but Baker Mayfield, Bijan Robinson, Drake London, Ted McMillan, Kyle Pitts, offensive line Falcons, defense Falcons, and coach Kevin Stefanski. Jonathan, what do you have?
Yeah, absolutely. So at the QB position, I'm going Bryce Young. it's just something about him. I just like him. He seems like a winner to me. He's a small guy, but he doesn't really take any shit. He gets hit, he gets back up. I like strong leader at quarterback. I think he is one, or at least he's, in my opinion, the best option as of this moment to move us forward into the playoffs. Baker Mayfield is a great option. He's a good QB2, but I want Bryce as my QB1. Running back, pretty obvious there, Bijan Robinson. Not much else to be said. Wide receiver 1, same thing, Drake London. I think he's going to have an incredible year no matter who's throwing him the ball. Ted McMillan as my wide receiver 2. Guy had a great rookie season. I think he's going to just continue to do well throughout a year or two. And we already have a great connection with Bryce Young, our QB right there. Tight end, I'm going Kyle Pitts as well. Tough, slim pickings for the tight end room in the NFC South. So, but you saw some flashes of rookie year Kyle Pitts last season. I think there may be more to that this time around this season. For the O-line, I went the Buccaneers. They have Tristan Wirfs. They have a couple guys there that didn't get to play last year because of injuries. Their starting 5 from last season didn't play one single snap together, but they're all healthy and back again for this season. So I'm gonna move a little bit different from Gary there and go the Bucs. Defense, Falcons. I mean, as long as Jalen Walker isn't over there doing anything he shouldn't, then we should be okay with that. And then Coach Kevin Stefanski, I think he was a really good head coach for the Browns. It's just the Browns, and that organization is dumpster fire in a dumpster fire. And so I think we got a steal out of Stefanski to be the Falcons head coach. Pretty confident this group here could get us at least a couple wins in the offs.
So I got Baker as well as my quarterback, and I want to emphasize pissed off Baker. I don't know if you guys saw the press conference that he's just coming clean off the field in Bucs jersey. He's like, yeah, this team sucks. Can't believe they dealt with me like that. I'm going to go win every game in response. Love that. I kind of believe him. And so Baker's going to definitely be my quarterback. Bijan is the tailback. I don't know how you go anywhere else. Drake London is our wide receiver 1. Don't know how you go anywhere else. I was between Tet or Chris Olave. I think Olave has the potential to be, a top 10 receiver in this league. And I'm not saying Tet doesn't, but like Olave's closer. So I would pick him. You guys are knocking on Kyle Pitts. I think Kyle Pitts is like a top 10 tight end in this league because it's kind of hard not to be for him. Like he's got some talent. And so I don't feel too ashamed picking him. Shout out Florida. The Bucs, to me, are far and away the best offensive line in this division. Tristan Wirfs, this might be controversial. Tristan Wirfs might be the best player in the NFC South, like pound for pound. There's multiple GMs and coaches that you go out there and hear them talk. They say he's a gold jacketer right now, and he's only in like year 5 or year 6. So at first, when I sent this in, I literally just picked Tristan Wirfs. If I just take 5 of him. Let's go. I think we could win any division whatsoever with that guy up there at front. But the Bucs O-line, if they stay healthy, are definitely the best unit. On defense, I don't see how you don't pick the Falcons as well. I mean, they got pass rushers galore, especially if James Pierce, he was able to zip around that officer right here, and he's going to be able to get him a couple sacks this year in the meantime. And Jalen Walker's going to come on, and they got some players in the secondary. They can turn you over with Jesse Bates being one of the best safeties back there in the back end. And then Kellen Moore is my head coach of choice. I know Stefanski's won coach of the year before, but Kellen Moore, you say whatever you want to, got Tyler Shuck to playing like competent NFL football by the end of the year last year. And this is coming from a Saints team that everybody thought they were going to be pretty much what this year's Cardinals are going to be, which is they have no hope. They might as well be the 33rd NFL team. I mean, I think that is an impressive feat. So I'm riding with Kelly Moe.
All right, and the last thing here for the NFC South, who is going to win? I will start off as well. Look, we saw the graphic. There's a lot of stars on the Atlanta. There's a lot of stars on the Atlanta Falcons. All right, I know the quarterback situation is rough, but listen, Bijan Robinson, Drake London. We drafted a guy in Zachariah Branch out of Georgia. I'm excited to see some things about. Okay, Kyle Pitts has got a new contract. The offensive line with Jake Matthews and Chris Lindstrom, they are some stars. All right, we've got the run game for them. In terms of the defense, I've mentioned it. I raved about them. We've got studs all around the park. Okay, I know the quarterback situation is tough. Whether it's Tua or Michael Penix, I'm going to be optimistic this season. I know last year I picked the Bucs to win it. I was still wrong about it. I don't know what to tell you. But I think this year, if the worst thing that could happen, we just throw Matt Ryan out there on the field. He's in the building 24/7. I really am just going to ride in on the Falcons this year. You can call it homerism or whatever you want, but I feel really good about what the Atlanta Falcons can put on the field this season. I'm not going to hate on them as much as I have before in the past. I'm going to be all in on the Atlanta Falcons. We're going to rise up. We're going to win this division. We're going to be able to win, let's say, 5 out of 6 division games and put everything on the field. I'm really excited about what Coach Stefanski can do this and make this offense even better. So I'm going to go with the Atlanta Falcons. I feel really good about where we are other than the quarterback position, but I think we can figure it out along the way. Caleb, who do you have winning this division?
I think despite the fact that they have 2 quarterbacks, the Falcons are going to win this division. I mean, it's going to be off the back of the guy I just said, yeah, I think he's going to be the guy. I think he's going to be the starter. I think he's going to be able to play well enough in a Stefanski system that, lest we forget, in Cleveland, like, he's had pretty terrible offenses up there, and that team has still been competitive most year in, year out. I think it's going to bode well for that offensive style of the ball. Tua is a timing guy, just kind of flamed out down in Miami, and the players, that whole thing got away from Mike McDaniel. I think he's wearing too many sunglasses, not worrying about the players enough. And so Tua is in a more structured situation here. Michael Penix, yes, they spent a high draft pick on him 3 years. It wasn't Stefanski. I don't think he gives a hot damn what if he was the first pick, if he was the 32nd pick, if he was the 199th pick. It wouldn't matter. He wants a guy that's going to be able to operate down after down, lead his team, and take care of the football. And Tua, for the most part in his career, has done all of those things.
Yeah, gonna make it a trifecta here. I got the Falcons as well. I think it's hard not to. You just look up and down the rosters and you just see too many dudes that the Falcons have, and it's an overabundance compared to the other guys. In terms of the quarterback situation, yeah, it's a little tough right now. Nobody really knows who we're gonna have down the line, but I don't think there's much variance from Penix to Tua. Maybe there is, but I'm confident that Stefanski is a good enough coach to be able to squeeze out the most potential out of either guy, especially with the assets that we have around it, with Robinson, with the O-line being a little bit of retooled, with Branch coming in, with London, and then the defense itself should keep us in a lot of games. And I think it's pretty hands-on that the Falcons should win this division. It'd be a massive disappointment if they didn't, in my opinion, just because of where everybody else is at. I think the Bucs are going to take a little bit of a step back. I was surprised Todd Bowles got retained by the Bucs. I think he should have been gone. The Saints, they're interesting, but how much of that Tyler Shuck or whatever his name is, however you pronounce it, how much was just that like a rookie year kind of thing, a little CJ Stroud-esque? Is that going to come into play? And then the Panthers, I think let's be real, they kind of lucked out with how they got to the playoffs last year. So I'm right there with you, Gary. I don't think any three of those teams are going to be consistent enough as to where I think the Falcons have enough across the lines of scrimmage on defense and with their playmakers that they should be able to come out of this division this year.
All right. Well, congratulations to anybody not named the Atlanta Falcons. You're probably going to win the division since we did a clean sweep there. But no, we all picked the Atlanta Falcons. No homerism on this podcast because Caleb is actually a Patriots fan, so you cannot claim that at all. All right. We've talked about the SEC. We've talked about the NFC South. All right. If we're going to wrap up this podcast, we're going to bring a new segment into this. Now, a lot of people like to tell me online that I don't know ball. Okay. So we're going to create a segment this season. All right. And for the people that listen, for the people that watch, we're going to find out how much you know ball. And we're going to find out if I know ball, if Caleb or Jonathan knows ball. We're each going to do this. We're going to do this maybe every week. Ball knowers only trivia. All right. Who doesn't love some good trivia here and there? Each of us is going to ask the other two a question, maybe 2. Depends how many you have. And we're going to see if you're able to know we're going to see if you know ball. That's what we're going to do. So I'll start it off here. Before we wrap up, let's have some fun. Let's see if the listeners, if you guys yourselves, you guys know ball. Mine is a college football centric question previous to last season, or terrible way of saying it, but it's about last season. Which running back led the country in rushing yards in 2025?
The country. I'm going to go Justice Haynes.
Was hurt mid-season, didn't finish the season.
Really? Isaac Brown?
Also got hurt last season.
Well, I thought you were saying the guy got hurt. I'm like, wait a minute, what? Okay, So he played the whole year. He led the country. How many yards do you have?
1,659 yards.
Dude, this got to be somebody like Air
5 or
Force
G?
It was G5, G6, whatever you call it nowadays.
Oh, this is the Army quarterback, isn't it?
The answer is Cam Cook, Jacksonville State, who is now.
Yeah.
Here's a follow up to that question: Where did he go in the portal?
Mississippi State.
I feel like that's close. I don't think that's where he went, though. Did he go to not West Virginia? Damn. It's on the East Coast, I think. Virginia Tech? I don't know.
TCU. TCU is the answer. Cam Cook, Jacksonville State, ran for 1,659 yards last year. That led the country by 10 yards. Second place was Ahmad Hardy, and he's now at TCU. So, point one for Gabe. Yeah, you definitely remember him now. Once you heard the name, you remembered it. So, 1 point, fellas.
Okay. All right. In 2004, which Power 5 team went 13-0, won their conference, beat Virginia Tech in the Sugar Bowl, but did not win? Yeah, there it is. They did not go to the Natty.
I had no clue.
Yeah. Auburn went 13-0 with Jason Campbell and Ronnie Brown and did not get a national championship. Yep. It was Oklahoma and USC, I think, played.
Yep. USC absolutely swiped the floor with them in the national championship. That was part of the USC, however many games in a row they won at one point.
My question will be, since 2000, who has the most sacks in the SEC over a career?
Oh, it's a player, not a team?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
In the SEC, who has the most sacks? Is it David Pollock?
Nope.
Dylan Stewart.
Oh,
nope.
man.
Nope.
Will Anderson Jr.
Damn it. Yeah, he had like 21 sacks with Bama that one year or something crazy.
Yeah, he had 34 and a half official career sacks.
That is.
And yep. So he's the second all-time leader in the SEC. Can you guys name the first one? It's the unofficial sack leader because the NCAA didn't keep tracking sacks.
This is all-time?
Yeah, I don't have a clue. Who is it?
Derek Thomas with 52 sacks.
Alabama guy. I was going to say it was a Bama guy. I couldn't remember.
Yeah.
Okay.
About that. Well, that was the first edition of Ball Knowers Only Trivia, and we'll be doing that all season long to keep everybody on their toes. That is going to wrap up episode 1, Deep Shot Podcast. It feels good to be back. Thank you guys for listening. We will be back in a couple days. We're going to keep this going. We've got to talk about more college football conferences. We got to talk about more divisions. We've got to hear from you guys. Let us know what you think. Make sure you guys are following on Instagram and TikTok at Deep Shot Sports. Make sure you subscribe to the YouTube on Apple Podcasts and on Spotify. Like, comment, subscribe, all of that good stuff. We will see you guys in a couple days. For Jonathan, for Caleb, thank you guys for being here. We're excited for Season 5. Deep Shot out.